Hey, it's Camo with the Nashville Access Facebook show, Primetime Edition. We are presented, of course, by Solus North Gulch Apartments, where taste matters. And I think we're upping our classification today to be a much more tasteful show because of our guest, Erica Stone. Come on in.
Hi.
It's so good to have
So
you
good
here.
to see
Oh,
you.
your hands are warm.
I don't know how.
Erica has a book and a CD. I get to hold up two things, and we're going to talk to her about both of them. First off, I saw you do your showcase a couple weeks ago at the Analog.
Yes.
Man, killer show.
Thank you.
You were
That really means a lot.
very emotional about the night.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why was it such a big deal to you?
A couple of reasons. One, because I kind of went on a journey where I thought I would never be back on the stage again. You know, I took some time off from the music business to raise my family and do some work overseas, and that kind of took over. And so it was the dream of doing what I once did, I thought was gone. So to be back up on the stage was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And then the fact that my kids, who 5 out of 6 are adopted, and most of them had never seen me on a stage because I was raising them. So they'd heard about this person that used to sing, used to write, and she was gone for so long. So to have them up in the balcony was pretty special because I always feel like, you know, I'm rooting them on in life, but to have all of them there rooting me on was kind of a really special family moment, I think. And so, yeah, it was just kind of a combination of all of that was maybe a little bit.
Now you have, part of you is very much a typical Nashville story, and the rest of you is just absolutely nothing typical.
Yeah.
You came to Nashville and were in line to be the next big thing.
Yeah, we got pretty far. I was actually part of a duo at the time. And
What was the duo?
so Picking Violets was our name.
Right.
And we had pounded the pavement for several years and worked our way into the business and into the community and got to the point where we had several different record deals on the table and things happening and, you know, like team members really helping get us where we needed to be, and we kept hitting the wall, you know, and like one particular label that we were about to sign with, the doors closed, like literally they were shut down, Lyric Street.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things, like how does that happen? And just everything that could go wrong went wrong for us, which is how this business works.
Yeah, it's
You
not
know?
a unique story.
No,
You know,
not
Craig
unique at all.
Campbell sells 1 million records and the label folds.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, and it's just crazy. You don't know what the next day holds in this business, no matter who you are or where you sit. And so after a little bit of that, after all that kind of went down, I tell people all the time, I struggle a little bit with self-promotion. And so we were promoting and pushing ourselves, and I got to the point I was just really tired of myself. And I just was like, I don't even want to talk about this anymore. Like, I just need a break. And so I had thought that I would never be able to do anything impactful until I had a platform in the music business. That's what I was trained to believe. And I told myself when the last deal fell through, I was like, you know, I'm going to do this anyway. I'm going to step away from myself in this crazy music row, and I'm going to go across the world and do something that I can control. And so that's what I did.
And you wrote about it.
Yeah.
So the book is called Gray, A Story of Loss. And I started reading it. I haven't got all the way through it yet.
Yeah.
But boy, it really grabs you. Do you want to tell us the story, or the story of the story?
Yeah.
What's behind the book?
So behind the book, you know, I carried this story. I've carried it for years. And I really do think the journey, I guess the book is really a story of my experience in a third world country, in an undeveloped country, you know, reeling from war and lots of tragedies, and it's kind of my experience there with advocating for children that are exploited, traded, sold, orphaned, abandoned, you name it. And that is obviously how my story has came to where it is today, why I have 6 kids and why we have an orphanage. And I went over there thinking I would do a little bit, and then I got totally
Life happens.
Life happened, and I got entangled over there in a lot of things. And the story is a lot of my, I think, reconciling all my mistakes and trying to make a difference, because you do make mistakes, and kind of learning where my place is in the world and how we can truly affect and change the way the world shift, all while trying to protect the dignity of people and children. And so it's kind of what the book is about. And I carried the story for a long time, kind of afraid to talk about it, because it's not a traditional, it's not really a happy story, I guess.
No, but it's very real.
But it's real, yeah. And so in carrying that story for a while, I kept trying to write the music. I kept trying to get back into the music business. And then I kept shelving it, because I was going about it the way I used to, trying to think about what I thought people would want to hear. Like I was trying to write for a box.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't coming out. I was a different person after this book. And so I ended up finishing the book and writing the album at the exact same time, which was crazy. And the album just came right out. And I just found that by writing in kind of my more emotional, raw, authentic space from my own experiences, I came out with what I felt like was my most creative record, most honest record, and the one that I feel like will actually meet people where they are, because that's what I want to do.
You're a very authentic artist, and that carries through into your book and your CD. But it's all about finding that voice. Mm-hmm. And I've struggled with writing off and on for years, and it's just finding that voice inside you that can communicate what's up here.
Right.
Both as a songwriter, I guess, and as an author.
Well, I think we're conditioned as people to say what we think people want to hear. Yeah. It's kind of hard to be honest. Yeah. And so we,
if everybody says, "How are you?"
I was just going to say the same thing. And you're like, "Oh, fine, I'm good." Yeah.
Well, my knees are really hurting, and
you're not going to really say what you're dealing with that day. Yeah, that's exactly it. And so I think we're so conditioned that to actually get to the root and to really, I think, connect with people, whether it is through books, music, you have to find the place. And I was talking to a really good author friend of mine when I was writing the book and working on the record, and I was stonewalling myself. I was stuck in my condo for several days trying to write, and I just couldn't move any further than where I had gotten. And I called him, I was crying, I was upset, and I'm like, I just don't know why I'm stuck. And he said, well, what are you afraid of? And I'm like, I guess I'm afraid of getting to the hard space, and I don't want to fall apart, I want to stay strong in all of it. And he said, well, that's where you have to start. He goes, I dare you to throw everything away and start in the hardest space.
That's good advice.
And so that's what I did, yeah, and that's page 1 of the book, was the hardest space that took me 4 years to write. And so, and once I did it, he was right. It just kind of, everything opened up from that point.
So what was the hardest space?
So the hardest space was telling the story of the day I found out my daughter had died. Okay. And wrestling with the reality that might have been on me.
Can you talk about how that happened? I mean, because you were in Africa.
Mm-hmm. So we had been fighting to bring her home for several years. We had guardianship of her. We had visited her regularly for several years. But she was caught up in a center. We had opened an orphanage, but she wasn't in our center.
Right. She
was in a different one, and it truly was an exploitation ring. It wouldn't be closed down by the government because the government was a bit entangled in it. And so no matter what we did, we couldn't get it closed down. Mm-hmm. And the more noise I made, the harder they got on me. Yeah. And so I was kind of put in a position where I had to choose opening our orphanage and running it or adopting her. I couldn't really do both. They weren't giving me that option. And so I felt that I needed to open the orphanage, and that I kept believing that they would eventually do the right thing and I would eventually get her out of there. And it didn't work that way. It didn't happen that way. My ideology, I was an idealist. I was an optimist at that time, thinking that everything would always work together, and it would work out. And then one particular trip, I went to the Ministry of Social Welfare to get my pass to go see her, like I always did, and the approval. And they reported to me that she had died of malaria, and you don't die from malaria anymore.
No.
In places like Sierra Leone, they have plenty of meds, free hospital care for children under 5, and had she been taken care of properly, she would have been fine. She was severely neglected in the place that she was in. And so I went from hearing this news to finding out that she'd been buried on the side of a highway, and I went on this mission to try to make her count. And I realized that the decision I made affected her. And so it was just wrestling with the facts that we make decisions every day that impact the lives of somebody else.
And not making a decision is still making a decision.
Exactly. Indifference.
And I think that's something that a lot of younger people don't understand. It's, by not choosing something, you're choosing.
Exactly. Absolutely. I've heard it said so many times, if you are indifferent to someone suffering, you're actually aiding in it.
Yeah.
So it's all that. That was the hard space, was wrestling with the reality that I actually made some wrong choices. Now on the other side of it, now today, I see good.
Bigger picture.
And I see the bigger picture. Yeah. But that's a journey.
Yeah.
And so I tell people that when I talk to them now, people that are going through things, like, it's okay if you don't see the whole picture today. Like, that in itself is a process.
All will be revealed.
Yeah.
How hard was that for your family? Not just you, but the people around you.
Really hard.
Yeah.
I think I look at the effects of what our work overseas has our family is in such a great space in some respects, and then yet others, I know my oldest son struggles with the way the world works. It makes him angry what happened to her. He there's that asking God why thing that we sometimes live in for long periods of time. It was a situation that my husband and I didn't talk to each other about for years. It wasn't until I was writing the book that we actually started talking about it. Those are some honest spaces, just being transparent. It was things we shelve pain.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm learning that you gotta take it off the shelf and you have to live in it.
How long ago did all this happen?
So Adama passed away in 2011.
Yeah.
So it's been 8 years since she passed away. We opened our orphanage in 2009. So we're going on 10 years old.
So where is the orphanage now?
Freetown, Sierra Leone,
Wow.
capital city.
Yeah, not the friendliest place in the world.
Well, it's had its ups and downs.
Not the vacation hotspot.
It could be. That's what's so sad. It has the most beautiful beaches in the world. The people of Sierra Leone are incredibly passionate and kind. The government is difficult. There's a lot of corruption, so I've had to really learn how to work inside those spaces so that good can be done.
How do you operate an orphanage in Sierra Leone from here? Do you have to make a lot of trips there?
We did for a long time, but now we have actually 67 Sierra Leonean staff members.
Wow.
That run the orphanage. From cooks, laundry, teachers, pastoral staff, the caregivers, we have a nursing staff. I mean, it takes a village to raise children 24/7, that many, because we have close to 100.
My parents used to say it takes a village and you're the idiot.
Exactly. So true. So true. Yeah. So we still travel several times a year, but we have an incredible staff. that handles it all.
Now, you have 6 kids.
Mm-hmm.
5 of them are adopted
Yes.
from
Yes.
Sierra Leone.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a handful.
Uh-huh.
You're in Brady Bunch territory.
We are. We are, yeah. It's
Partridge Family
mm-hmm.
is probably more appropriate.
We're definitely easy to spot when we go out for lunch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have a lot going on in our house. So they're all getting older though, and they're finding their way. And I just hope my youngest could just stay in my pocket forever. Like she was the unplanned adoption. People think adoption's planned, but it isn't. It's not.
Well, actually,
Yeah, she was the surprise, and they're like, "Doesn't that just happen in pregnancy?" I'm like, "No, actually, clearly happens in adoption as well." So,
how do you go about describing an unplanned adoption?
So okay, that's a good question.
Can I get one once in a while? Good question.
I think we have our life planned out. And I know for us, after our 5th child, we were done. We felt like we were done.
You must be exhausted.
Yeah, we were, exactly. I was tired of the whole process. And we had them all home and we were doing well. It's like you get in that stage of everything's settling and you're feeling like you're past, transition, and you're settling into life as a family, and you're like, this is good. We're not gonna upset this again. And then the world tells you different. Life, like the universe is like, oh no, actually, you're gonna do this again, and this is what this is gonna look like. And for us, it's been interesting. Our first adopted daughter, I found her like through a series of events, and I was the one trying to convince my husband that we needed to adopt her. And then Adama was one we were doing. We both found her at the same time and knew we needed to adopt her. And then the next group of kids, again, kind of came through the orphanage, and we both felt it was the right thing. Neither one of us were trying to convince one another. But then Willa came along, and I was trying really hard to find her a family, and because we were done, finished. So I'm like, I'm gonna find. She's gonna be somebody's precious little one. But nobody was showing interest in her, which was so strange because she was so young, and usually younger children are matched very easily. And I couldn't figure it out. And then one trip, my husband goes over there without me, and he calls me crying, telling me he's been tucking a little girl into bed every day, and she just wants him, and he knows that she's his daughter. And I'm like, no, you don't know that. No. I'm telling you, no, I'm sorry. That is, you are mistaken and misguided. And I hang up, and I just felt this isn't, I'm on the wrong path here. Like something's amiss, and it's me. And so I realized that he knew. And so here she comes. Fastest adoption we ever had. Easiest transition we ever had. And she's like this huge gift.
So how old is she now?
She's almost 7.
Oh.
But when we found her, she was the same age when we found Adama. So I think part of me struggling to connect with her was that I felt like I was replacing a child I'd lost. And so it was a lot of that, working through those kind of things.
Yeah. How much of it's a huge change to go from a village or a small city in Sierra Leone to the United States, a place where there's nothing to a place where there's everything and then some.
Yeah, it's hard on kids. It's definitely a big transition. We've had around 70 children adopted to the U.S. since 2013 out of our orphanage. And I won't tell you that it's been easy on all of them. I mean, that would be completely ridiculous, because it's not. I think
sorry to interrupt, but to my way of thinking, it's like you're being dragged from a place where you have absolutely nothing, and then I would think it would be the coolest thing in the world. It's like suddenly I've got flying on a plane. How cool is that? But then after you do that a few times, it's no big deal. But then you've got all the toys you could possibly imagine, music, you've got places. But to me, that would be an easy thing.
Yeah,
but it isn't?
It isn't, no. it isn't easy because adoption is supposed to be the coming together of family unit. And teaching a child who's never had a family that that's the most important thing, especially a child that's come from a country where they are in survival mode. They come here and they don't always know how to love you back. They don't always understand bonds and attachment. They just want to connect with whoever's going to give them what they need. That's what they're survivalists. So that's how they operate. So to break that down, to heal those spaces so that they can love well. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is to teach these children how to love, because in many spaces for them, they were not loved well. And so you're dealing with a lot of trauma. So even though they may get things, they will tend to think that's where their answer is, and it's not. So it's,
I don't know, some things have good answers.
well, it's true. Like vodka.
Good answer.
You know?
Good answer. Okay, so the book is called Gray, A Story of Loss, Erica Stone. Go and get it and read it, and then you'll understand more of what we're talking about. Let's move on to the music now. So the album is called Antidote, and it's really cool because it's got 10 whole tracks on it.
Speaking of vodka, that's not why I named it that.
But still.
But still.
Yeah. So the album and the CD or the book and the CD come out at the same time.
Pretty, yeah.
You finish them at the same time.
Yeah, like a month of each other. Yeah.
How is the music similar to the book, and how not similar is it?
So I guess the book is just obviously telling a story from beginning to end. Whereas I think I tried to take a lot of what I went through in the book and put it into a more creative space musically. Music, I feel like music heals people. I know it heals me. So my goal with the album was to come from a space where I think the album as a whole represents the fact that life is real hard, right? And we're gonna go through it whether we want to or not. It's going to be what it's going to be. But along the way, we're gonna have these dark spaces, but we also are gonna find the light. And so it kind of, the album takes you on a journey through all those feelings. So why it's not telling you a specific story, it's hopefully going to have a song you're going to relate to, that you're going to want to keep with you.
Because if you're writing from a very dark place for your book, my way of thinking is the music's going to reflect that same darkness.
It does in some of it. But then there's the reconciliation of it, like I talk about, there are beautiful spaces in the dark where we find out more about ourselves, more about the people who are around us. They come to the rescue. Like Antidote, the name of the song is about that. Like there are people who rescue us in our times of need, and they are the antidote when it can't be fixed, when we can't solve the problem ourselves. We have to have someone. There's got to be someone there to walk us through it, and that's what some of the record's about.
I can't wait to listen to it because I love music that comes from dark places.
Yeah.
Like Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks, very dark.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to listen to it.
I'm a pretty moody writer, and so it's funny.
With 6 kids, moody is going to be kind of a given.
It's true. That's actually, that's a really good point. I tell my co-writers, and when I get into co-writing rooms, they know never to invite me if they're going to write an up-tempo song, because Erica will not be helpful.
No happy poppy.
No, not really. I mean, and then when I say, no, I probably need this to, I would come in with ideas, and a couple of them we shifted. Because they're like, you should take this up a bit. And I'm like, really? Are you sure? So they stretch me a bit and make me a little more positive. But it's funny because I am a very positive person. But it just does not come out all the time when I write.
But for me, great music, it can be up, even though it's dark. I mean, Pink Floyd's The Wall, a perfect example.
Yeah.
There's some killer stuff on there.
Yeah.
But it's a very black album.
Heavy song.
Yeah.
Yeah, heavy album. Yeah, that's true. I have really only one song on this album that I feel like is positive. Actually, it's Nobody Makes It Alone. But I remember when I wrote it, I had to have it like, I needed it to feel historical, and I was looking for this kind of like 60s, 70s vibe where like it would at least make people feel reminiscent of like something. Like I don't want people like be bopping down the road. Like I want them to like feel something even in the midst of it being, like I want them to go down memory lane.
Right.
If that even makes sense.
It does, yeah.
But yeah.
So book, CD, what else have you got going on in your life that's kind of a big deal? 6 kids is a big deal.
Yeah, we've got that going on. We are working on a documentary. It's been in the process now for a minute. Hollywood is a lot like the music business. It's not Hollywood, but like the film world is much like the music business. It's hurry up and wait.
Treatment gets passed around.
Lots of edits, lots of changes. But that will be coming soon, and that is being done in conjunction with Foxtail Films. The filmmaker is Greg Campbell, who wrote the book Blood Diamonds.
Right.
It became Leonardo DiCaprio film, if you ever saw that.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah, so he's actually doing this documentary, and I'm excited about it because I feel like I can only tell so much from my book. The documentary explores so many stories of so many beautiful people in Sierra Leone, and then also the hard trench work that it takes to make a difference. So I'm really hopeful that it's going to reflect that and really make people think and use their lives.
The downside of that is that it's constantly reopening a wound for you.
Yeah, a bit. I bet, yeah. I go to a therapist on a weekly basis.
There's nothing wrong with that.
She was at the show. It does. It does, but that's just part of the job. It's just part of the job.
It is. And I think, it's not unique among creatives. We were talking about this earlier this week, and I think a lot of creatives are really prone to depression and prone to a lot of anxiety, and partially because you're forced out in the public eye, and that's not a comfortable place for you. Are you naturally an introvert, or
yes?
See,
Big
an introvert living an extrovert's lifestyle.
Yeah.
Your therapist has a lot to do.
She does. Yeah. She does. Yeah, she was. Yeah, I am naturally an introvert, so it does but it's easier for me to talk about the things I care about. Like, I don't know, I love to tell the stories of the people I've seen and have touched. Like to me that's worth coming out of my shell a bit, if I need to. But yeah, it's definitely difficult, but I think anything worth doing is difficult. So
in the music business and with what you've done adopting children in Sierra Leone, do people look at you as a pushover when you first walk into a room?
Now?
No, then. When you started doing it, it's a natural music business thing.
When I was...
When you're going to an African country and a beautiful blonde walks in, they must think, who's got a target on the forehead?
Always.
Yeah.
It's funny, I kind of become a different person over there. Some of that's reflected in the documentary. I'm not going to be super popular when that comes out. I kind of harden up a bit because I have to over there. And because you're right, they just see dollar signs and someone that they could manipulate. Yeah. And so I do have to work hard to, I've spent years studying law so that as I advocate, I can speak intelligently over there. So I know all their laws. I know what they should be doing legally, what they're doing that's illegal. So when I go in and fight for a kid in the Ministry of Social Welfare, I'm quoting their laws. I have to.
But isn't that dangerous? I mean, there has to be a lot of danger involved in
I've been in a few.
You know, the music business is dangerous, but
Yeah.
a West African country that are really, the laws are kind
The
of...
music business seems so easy now. It's like, yeah. I have found myself in police stations and dark rooms many times over the last 10 years, for sure.
Wow.
And I have attorneys that I have to call if I find myself in a situation. And I've done that many times, but I've definitely gotten a little tougher than I used to be. I was naive in the beginning. This book was on my naivety. It was like on my...
And music business, you had the naivety in the beginning too, and now...
It's so funny
know
too.
your way around it more.
Well, in the music business, especially as a woman coming into the music business, you think you have to fit a certain pattern, and they expect you. And when I was doing this 10 years ago, I remember going into record labels and my team saying to me, "Don't talk about Africa. Whatever you do, don't mention that you have any kids." I only had 2 at the time, and I was like, "Oh, but you want to know what held the conversation?" Every single time was the things that actually matter. And so I've learned to just be me. Like, I'm way outside of the box, and that's just the way it is.
And for me, the authentic artists are the ones that shine through in the end. And watching your show, you couldn't help but think authentic. There was nothing about that was pre-packaged country pop star.
Yeah.
At all.
No, definitely not. And thank goodness. Thank goodness I'm comfortable with that now, because there was a time when I wasn't. I was just like every other girl.
Does that come with age or experience?
I think it's experience, because I think there are some young women out there who are a lot younger than me that are real smart, and they know who they are, and because they've been through life at even a very young age. My 16-year-old daughter teaches me more than I can teach her. So I don't think it's age. I truly think it's experience. And I hope that the music industry will give more women the opportunity to be heard, because I think the female is the listener, not the musician, but the listener. The female listener needs women that they can relate to, that are walking through life experience like they are. They need it desperately.
Essie McBride's a great example. I mean, she's a great voice.
Yes, yes.
But she does not fit into the Nashville prepackaged pop star mold. And she's fighting for everything she gets.
Well, and that prepackaged mold isn't even on the radio anymore.
Yeah.
So what is it? Like, that's the thing. Everything is a myth anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think the sooner they start accepting that women are complicated and complex, and there's many layers, and there's so many women that can be great examples in the industry to that listener, I think the quicker we'll see women back. They just have to open their eyes a bit to who's around town, because there's some amazing women of all ages, genres, you name it. I mean, they're playing out every night of the week.
Yeah.
You know.
I feel like we just have a ton to talk about, and I'd love to get you back sometime when things are moving along.
Yeah.
Erica Stone, the book is called Gray, A Story of Loss. You can get that damn near anywhere you can get a book.
Yeah.
And the album is called Antidote / Vodka.
Yes. My mom would be so unhappy with that.
Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's been an absolute delight having you.
Thank you.
Pleasure to talk to, and you've got a great story.
Well, thanks for having me. It means everything.
Come back again.
Okay.
Thanks for watching the National Access Facebook show presented by Solis North Gulch Apartments, where taste matters. Great taste. If you're watching, Erica Stone, thanks for being here. Don't forget to catch me on Hippie Radio in Nashville, 94.5 Saturdays from 3 to 7, and middays on Chris Country across the UK. And Thursday mornings on 88.9 Tamworth FM in Tamworth, Australia with Jody and John. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.